Hey folks, Steve here with another Axis Empires Ultimate Edition video. This is another entry in our Dice of Decision campaign with Schiff's Krieg added in, so we're kind of going all out for this particular series. This video should be covering the year of 1939. If you are watching this somehow as the first video, if you've not seen the others, we've done a whole series going through the Dice of Decision process to create our alternate historical timeline and world here. And the previous videos covered the events of 1937 and 1938. Now, if you prefer to read a less technical and more narrative form of the story, I am posting a session report to Board Game Geek written in sort of a, we'll say, junior high textbook level of detail of what is playing out here as sort of a narrative story, talking about kind of the game results of activities, how that fits into maybe a larger narrative fabric, and you can check that out. That might even be the preferred format to consume this campaign because it's a little easier to follow here. I'm talking about cards, I'm kind of showing things on the map as they progress, and it's a little maybe harder to appreciate the story as it plays out. So whether you want to watch it, you want to read it, you do both, you want to pop in and see the map changes as time goes on, that's all okay. I don't expect folks are watching these videos from beginning to end quite as much, just because we're really in the thick of things and it takes time to work through. I did get a question. I am indeed doing the naval builds. I'm just not talking about them as much, which is my bad. Generally, to summarize all of that for the last several seasonal turns, Germany got lucky early with some builds, but hasn't been particularly lucky lately. Japan has done okay. They're kind of getting average results, so they're getting some builds. Sometimes they're missing the die roll, and generally Britain has gotten it all except like one time. I think it missed early on. America has also done reasonably well. So in terms of the expected results for naval builds for Schiff's Krieg, about everybody is kind of hitting the same or not the same. They're hitting about what I would expect given the die ranges. So we'll say it's average results with Germany getting lucky once and getting some builds going. And what's funny is, despite our War Plan Z stuff or the Z plan, despite the Imperial Navy, um, and all these things, like the German Navy really is not as big as I think we would need it to be to really contest the Commonwealth in real terms. So if we are to see a sea lion type of activity in this campaign, it's going to come down to Germany having a better, we'll say, support marker return kind of activity where at the height of their power with Axis Tide and their beneficial DRMs on delay rolls, they can just get their navy deployed faster than the British can, after conflict and force a landing. That would be kind of how I think that would end up playing out. So that's really what we're going to be dealing with. We'll see what happens. Anyway, yes, we are in 1939, the spring of 1939. So technically, January and February have passed, but hey, you got to split the game somewhere. So 1939 will most definitely be the outbreak of limited war somewhere. It will at least happen on the Daisenso map. It probably will happen on the Krieg map, but we'll see. There is a chance that that doesn't happen, in which case I've got some pivots in mind if that ends up being the case, and it could mean we don't reach limited war until 1940, and I don't know what that does to the European situation, but we would like to get the ball rolling as best we can. And I've got some things planned from an Axis perspective that could be quite potent depending on die roll. So let's talk about the Germans just really quick. We are going to be doing Ribbentrop diplomacy. So this is sort of our last opportunity to do some kind of, in my mind, some pre-diplomacy activities, but the die rolls, can be widely varied in the results, so I'm not really counting on anything here. But I figure I might as well try to make something happen. I would love to get some influence into Spain and make them a full active ally. Right now, Spain is activated, but we've got a free passage marker, which means that Spain will move around. It'll defend its own territory. I can put German troops in Spain, but they're not really going to help attack outside of Spanish territory, which means I'd have to get some Germans down there to press on Gibraltar. So would really love to get them fully into the thing. And then we're going to have Pact of Steel, and Pact of Steel is going to be super important. I'm going to play this in the summer. This will be the summer card. We get so on each turn, we're going to select one a treaty minor country and apply influence. And uh, basically, right now, so a treaty minor country are countries that are adjacent to your faction, your active faction. And what that could mean is we finish off aligning Poland and Austria-Hungary. That'd be great. And then we could also look at, depending on the order that we do this in, we could look at doing some influence against Greece or something, and maybe pick up Greece as an ally. I mean, I don't know that it's going to work out that way. Alternatively, depending on how our Ribbentrop diplomacy goes, we could get influence into France, and we could maybe try to align France. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Currently, France has no influence marker in it, so kind of a bizarre situation. They are just considered a minor country at this point, so whatever we can do with that, it could actually be very, very interesting. And it's just going to come down to some of these die rolls. The power of the Pact of Steel is that basically the German player is able to just pick, I think. Yeah, select. So we get to pick. It is not, it is not often that the diplomacy mechanisms in this game allow us to just pick and deploy influence. It's a very powerful card, and we're going to want to do that to solidify the seeds that we've already planted. So we'll see. Germany has gotten very lucky this campaign. Probably the luckiest faction across the 6 factions. The axis on the Totalkrieg map. That's just what we're seeing. For Japan, at this point now, the timer has run out against anything inhibiting this. We will be able to play Army Plan Adopted, and this will cause limited war to go into effect. And then we're going to go with Japanese mobilization, and we're just going to get ready to rock and roll. Now, I believe I'm still going to have to declare war on somebody. So just sort of arbitrarily being the limited war, that to make it real, Japan is going to have to initiate hostilities somehow, one way or another. And I've been set up to invade Hubei province for a long time now, for years, in fact, technically. And so I think we just got to go there. I don't want to move around a lot of troops. Just kind of show where that is at. See up there. There's a lot of concentration of troops. I'm kind of ready to go. Have been ready to go. I thought we were going to be at war in 1937. Thought maybe we could make it happen in 1938, but the card order tripped us up, and it's not going to be till 1939. So, kind of a funky bit there. I do think China is in a really good position to defend itself generally. So while the Hubei province may end up falling, I think the communists, the nationalists, and their other buddies in China are going to be a pretty significant hurdle. And Japan has not had the benefit of the the previous 2 years of progress, which is, I think, really going to hurt their position overall on the game map. So weird to think about there. We'll have to deal with it. I definitely think Japan is not in good shape. That's my look at the table right now. Not in good shape. Not for the time it's going to be needed to make real headway in the game. So we'll see where that goes. We could be seeing this campaign playing in 1946 due to the late start of what will probably be total war. I'm not sure. We'll see, I guess. Anyway, so my goal here, we're going to play through some of the Axis stuff. We'll get through the allies. Maybe what I'm going to do, because war is going to be coming in and we're going to spend a lot more time dealing with the war aspects, what I might try to do here, I might change my pace. I've talked about what the Axis is going to do. Maybe what I'll do here, just to save time and to make this a more easily consumable video, I will play through the German turn, I will play through the Allied turns and the Soviet turns, and in fact, I'll play through all of spring and I'll talk about the card selections of the Allies and the Soviets after the fact, just because I think that this will enable us to move a little more quickly. Because once I start having to move military units around the map, things are going to get really slow. I still want to keep it to, if I can, 1 year per video, even in the middle of the war, and just talk about the big swings of things. So it's easier to talk about what has already happened than what I'm planning on happening. I guess maybe that's the way to do it. So I don't know if folks have a preference. Let me know in the comment section down below. But I'm going to make a shift here, and we'll just play through spring. We'll talk about the results of that, the cards, and then we'll get prepped to get through the summer. Yeah. While I intended to play through the rest of spring here, events have gotten extreme enough that I found it valuable to show this before the Allies go, because I think the events kind of affect the Allied decision making in terms of cards and what can they try to do. So with our Ribbentrop diplomacy, we ended up rolling on the guarantee table, which turned into a support nationalists, or I'm sorry, minor country politics, which turned into a role on the diplomatic incident. And I chose the Balkans just because I wasn't sure, what I didn't want to lose something. I didn't want to have. I wanted some chance of something happening, and then maybe nothing happen. If I wasn't going to get like a good neutrals pressured role, then I should, maybe not get anything bad. I actually got something really really good as Germany. So once again, German luck, um, unstoppable this game. We got Greece, and I was thinking, okay, well, Greece is fine. Let's see what we get. And I rolled, and we got border war, which does a couple of things. One, turns Greece into an allied country, which means we once again are picking up a strategic hex, and this time it's a Western strategic hex, which this is a pretty dramatic move here. And it will mean is in the summer when we do a strategic check, we are actually going to be at Axis tied, and that is going to pay off big time for all the other activities that the Germans are going to have on the board in Totalkrieg. Now, the sort of offset is that I had to pick an adjacent country to Greece to activate as an enemy country, and we did Bulgaria. That was kind of the only real option we could have. So Bulgaria has now fully aligned with the Soviet Union, and they're technically considered like a border war, but there's no real mechanism for us to have them be fighting. The posture displays are staying the same. It just means that both of these countries are kind of dealing with friction. They're both mobilizing, so their units are on the board with multi steps. Um, if it were to come to real blows when war with the Soviet Union occurs, Bulgaria is going to get smushed by Austro-Hungarians, by Turkey, by the Greeks, and we would expect them to collapse pretty quickly there. But who knows? The biggest thing out of this really is that strategic hex. Like, wow, we are starting. We have control of Baghdad, Cairo, Athens. Three green strategic hexes already under our control. We have reasonable control over many of our gray German strategic hexes. The only one really at risk is the one in Italy, which is Soviet influenced right now. If we go to war with the Western Allies, we're going to quickly grab Belgium, probably France. We should be able to grab Oslo pretty quickly, which will put us at six, I believe, one, two, three, 4, 5, 6. That would give us six if we manage to get um, London with a sea lion or something. That would get us, I believe, a total of seven. And we would be right in the middle of Axis Tide 2, which would be really good. That's 2 VP is I think the height of the German success historically. Um, and so if we could pull all of that off, that would be extremely valuable. That would allow us to then eventually go into Eastern Europe and have a very strong possibility of ratcheting up to 3 VP, maybe 4 VP with Axis Tide. The other big thing that happened that I do feel I have to talk about here is in China, and actually, sorry, let me this positioned a little bit better. So um, I screwed up a little bit, guys. I did screw up a little bit. The army plan puts us at war with nationalists and the communists, which is great. However, my desire to go into Hope first falls flat because they were only Western influenced when we entered limited war. I don't automatically just begin at war with Hope. So I had to scramble. I had broken down a unit, shipped it to Shanghai, and then we made a progressive push here into Nanking. And I got very fortunate with die rolls. I also deployed an air unit, um, which helped. That was a really important thing. The other, with the Blitz marker that I got by sacrificing our army marker into the delay box, which was tricky. Um, what was going to give us is 2 combat rounds. The first combat round went well. That was actually the most important one. And I have found in the Axis Empire system, if you're trying to assault a major position, you really want the first die roll to go well. Then the second die roll doesn't matter as much because we could eliminate a unit, and then the remaining nationalist Chinese step was only 1 combat strength. So any remainder of my forces was now, X to 1. So we managed to get a good die roll. We eliminated 1 step, and then the subsequent second combat in the regular combat phase was, basically 4 to 1. And we managed to clear Nanking. We took out 2 nationalist Chinese steps. We're in a decent spot to push on to Wuhan. And what I did decide to do during the War and Peace segment is declare war on Hopei, which puts it into the Western China, the nationalist Chinese organization because of the influence marker. However, we don't get a chance to attack them because that happens at the end of the turn. So Hopei units are deployed. We also got to mobilize them, and they managed to get a good enough roll that all their on-map units are 2-steppers. So we're going to have to wait until the next spring turn. And by the way, we will be experiencing mud at that point in the north. So we could be gummed up in Hopei a little bit. However, I think we're going to have some decent capability to make progress against the nationalist Chinese anyway, and the fight's going to be underway here. So kind of a goofy thing. I would have much rather have cleanly taken Paiping and then moved on from there against Hopei with a proper attack on them, but just the way, demand cards versus this method, we have to do it a bit differently. So I'm kind of stuck with that. So weird circumstance. We're going to do what we can. This will affect the Allied card play and card decisions, and in terms of what makes sense to get rolling here. Because now that the fighting is broken out, at least on the Daisenso map, every faction has access to limited war cards, and that's going to be kind of the big spin and change on that part of the map. For the Tallerkrieg, the Europe map, we're still in pre-war. Things are still developing there. But that's pretty significant. So in terms of talking very quickly about the card selections, the Western allies on the Tallerkrieg map, they're doing initial mobilization. We need to get, this is going to allow us to get our finest hour, or their finest hour out as Britain and just continue our mobilization activities. And we're going to try some last-ditch diplomacy before Germany can continue its, try to salvage the situation somehow before limited war breaks out. And then Russia is going to have that last-ditch attempt here soon, coming up, to try to stop the German alliance system. And then they've got their own rearmament coming up to support their activities then. And for the Daisenso stuff, we do have our American rearmament occurring, which will work just fine. And then we're going to play the Quarantine Address, which is going to increase some influence to friendly Chinese minor countries and kind of get them activated, get them rolling, so that we can start to improve our general position, and then we'll get some additional die rolls here. So it's a good card to get out now that nationalist China's posture is war. And then similarly for the Soviet Union on the Daisenso map, we're doing the continuing rearmament. Not a whole lot here. It's just something we need to get out and done. but we are going to be playing aid to China. We have played pact with China. Both communist China and nationalist China posture is war. Russia's posture is currently border disputes that never changed. Um, so what this is going to enable us to do is get Soviet aid to China rolling. That's kind of the main thing. I want to try to get that door open so we can support China at this point because, yes, that is the main focus of the fighting, and it will be. So I'm going to play through the rest of spring now. The Allies have not gone yet in spring, and we just did the Axis stuff, which was so momentous. I felt like I needed to talk about it. We'll get through the rest of spring now, and we'll show the aftermath of that. Okay, in the aftermath of spring, Germany didn't really get much else going on with their die rolls, so we'll account Greece to be their big success. But they got a no result otherwise on their diplomacy card. But I think they're coming away with a lot of goodness. Um, Japan decided to take some risks, and so it was mud in the northern region on the Daisenso map. However, we had drawn Fortunes of War cards, and I kind of forgot to talk about what they got. Japan, this comes in with limited war because we're playing with Schiffskrieg. We drew 2 cards. They get super heavy artillery, and that's useful against fortresses, but right now we're not dealing with that. They also got inspired leadership, which allows them on a major effect to basically they just get to pick their combat die result, whatever they want. So that's what they got. And in support of their offensive in the north and trying to make up time, we decided, okay, we move forward to be adjacent to Wuhan, and we'll try to make something happen there as time allows. But we didn't. It didn't really seem like we had great options right there. Up here, I wanted to make progress against the strategic hex, so all the bonuses and things and the negatives for the mud involved there. We attacked Paiping. We did use that inspired leadership. We got the major effect, and we were able to choose the result, which basically led to the elimination of a 2-step unit in Paiping. Now, we only get a couple of these Fortune of War cards like ever. So it's a big question of like, was that worthwhile? To me, it was because we've managed to eliminate some steps, and basically the Allies are not going to be able to do much to stop us. They're effectively caught up. They couldn't leave Zox or anything. So what this should mean is in summer, with or without a Blitzmarker, I expect to be able to get into Paiping, and even further than that, have a strong possibility of conquering Hope in the over the course of summer, maybe even be pushing into Kansu here or the rest of Kiangsu. So that was the whole idea, was like, let's just easily wear down the units. They weren't able to move because of the mud to reinforce Paiping, and that should enable us to just make up for some lost time, kind of crush the rest of the purple units there, and start making some headway, and hopefully do that before the Allies have a chance to really build up a lot of strength. That's the thought process here. We need to get into strategic hexes. We need to get our die roll modifiers going for the delay and everything else. So we need to get moving. So that's the thought process here. Now, as we enter summer, and I should point out the Fortune of War cards that the Allies pulled are special weapons espionage, which basically means that we can disrupt Axis development. And then this will be an interesting card. We can't really make use of it right this second. But in the summer, we could use this to pick a result on a political event chart, which could actually be really strong. So, and it's any political event. So we could use this to, I think, stop Japanese diplomacy if the Japanese try to stick with that. What is clear to me right now is hindsight is what matters here, because I guess I didn't know it was going to be like this. If we had gotten more diplomacy, I would feel a lot better having pursued the political program directive as Japan. If I knew that diplomacy was going to be such a crapshoot as Japan, I would have picked the economic program, and we'd have put a logistics marker on the continent, and we'd be putting Japanese reinforcements there. So I need to figure out, is there some other way I can get access to that logistics marker, because it's going to be a big help. I think I should have rethought this if we were really going to be. I don't know. I thought the diplomacy would help us a lot, and it really hasn't. That would have been, would have been preferential for the economic stuff, and then we could have avoided um, some other challenges. So that's kind of a loss. Now for the cards, well, yeah. Let me make sure I've got all my cards picked out right, and that they're not illegal picks. Okay, yeah. For summer, my plan is to use Pact of Steel as Germany, and this will allow us to apply influence to countries we select. And importantly, that will mean we will be able to deploy our Austro-Hungarians on the board. They'll be our buddies. Poland will very likely be our buddies. And then we'll have another one, and I haven't quite figured out what that's going to be. It could be we get Spain fully on board. I think that's the obvious choice, but we could end up with something different that might be more useful. I'm not sure. For Japan, we got mobilization. The idea here being making sure we can get some steps onto the board and get some more stuff in our force pool. So this should enable us to get more forces onto the continent. And then we'll execute Operation Wugo. The plan is to do this in the fall because the weather in the north should be good enough at that point that we can make some headway against either the Chinese communists or whatever the situation may be. For the Western Allies, they're going to try to do some more diplomacy. The hope is maybe get France involved and get them situated and activated and set up sooner rather than later. Scandinavian League, last-ditch effort at Western diplomacy is the idea there. On the Pacific map, we're going to be using our quarantine address, try to maybe do some more political stuff. We're going to use this to basically get the rest of the Chinese minor provinces involved in the war. That'll be good for that. And then we're going to plan to do aid to China and get that rolling because we want to make sure we can start getting regular steps deployed into China. These are really Chinese-centric cards that we're going to need to be successful. For Russia, we're going to be continuing rearmament and just to get some steps onto the board. This is a straightforward play. And then we're going to play Nazi-Soviet Pact. The reason we're going to do this is to protect any of our other Soviet minors. So those will be protected. Right now they're not. So Germany could actually potentially declare war on Bulgaria, for instance, and knock them out without any sort of help, or attack any other countries in the Soviet sphere of influence. So we need to protect them with the pact. Need that out. Need to get that going. And then on the Pacific map, we're doing aid to China now. So we're going to be able to get this in, start supporting the Chinese communists more. That's going to be really important. And then we're going to use Chinese insurgency to try to continue to oppose the Japanese. So very much a Chinese-centric set of card plays here for the summer. On Daisenso, on the Totalerkrieg map, really focused around the political maneuvering, the final sets of political maneuvering before we expect war to kick out. It will come down to whether or not the demand Gao Moslin card triggers a country resists. It's entirely possible that doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, we'll have to figure something else out as Germany, but we'll go from there. And I'll just play through the whole of summer because some of this still may not be terribly exciting. We'll be able to talk about the aftermath of the Chinese front and get into the fall. Okay, so here we are at the end of summer, guys. I've got a few cleanup things to do in terms of adding more units from the turn track as we move the turn markers forward. But I'll at least say and show what we've seen occur here. With the Pact of Steel, and I did it in summer so that I could get the three political events. We finished aligning Austria-Hungary, and we now see kind of their setup here, getting situated to be able to attack Bulgaria if need be. Also, troops on the border of Italy. Right now, Italy remains a Soviet influenced nation, though with the Western League card, the British actually got an Italian result. But it was a May, and realizing, well, if they try to apply influence to Italy, it would actually remove the Soviet influence and actually puts it in danger of helping the Axis. And so it was decided to let it remain a Soviet nation, for better or for worse. Um, the British did get Portugal with Western influence, so that's something to watch out for. There's another Allied strategic hex there, so I guess it's good to put some general protection over it and make sure that it's gonna have some support if need be. Um, we so I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. I'm talking about what the British did, but the Germans then, in the second turn of summer, aligned Poland. So now Poland is on or part of the Central Powers, we'll say. Nice little sort of heart-shaped deal we got going here. And then with our third one, I had to make a choice. And some of those choices could be awfully strange and weird. One, I could have tried to influence France, and gosh, I thought about it. Just what? Could we do it? Could we do it? And the answer is yes, but that would hurt our capability of um, making the case yellow card incredibly valuable. And that's sort of the main thing that I was concerned with. So I do think we're going to end up beating up on France. We will probably liberate France rather than conquer it with case yellow, but I want the case yellow card because it does give us some influence events, and I would like, when I think I'm going to use case yellow. Let me double check the card really quick. Case yellow. Select one neutral country and declare war. Okay. And then in the conditional event segment, if it is a seasonal turn, you may select one minor country and apply influence. So we basically, once the fighting really begins, we're guaranteed at least one good influence event if I do case yellow, and I will. Um, and I'm going to use it on Ukraine. So I put our third influence in Ukraine. Now, it's possible that we could lose that Ukraine influence somehow, but if I can keep it long enough into this next year, and if we take France out, or at least we just need to play the case yellow card, period, we will get to apply influence, and we will apply it to Ukraine, which will do a couple of things. One, it will dramatically increase the capability of our support on the Eastern Front against Russia. And then we will pretty much easily, ideally, pick up, one, two, three strategic hexes, which would throw us out to, I don't know. I mean, it would cap us off really well. We'd be in the 3 VP or 4 BP range at that point, just aligning, and then it's a slugging match against Russia. But if we do well enough there, we could be on the doors of Leningrad and Moscow pretty quickly, um, just on that alone, and all those extra Ukrainian steps could be a great help. Um, the other nice thing is that because Germany is a democratic power, I don't need to worry about occupation. That's not a thing I have to care about. At least I don't think it is. I don't have to double check. It is. Uh, let me double check really quick. Um, yes, minor country occupation is only checked by totalitarian countries, which means we don't have to worry about occupation. We can run our multi-step units right through all of our allies: Poland, Austria-Hungary, Ukraine. We could do that. We also don't need to worry about the ideological movement restrictions. So uh, a totalitarian minor country ground unit cannot move into a hex in a friendly country or dependent, um, unless it is that unit's home country or dependent. What that means is that we can move, because we're not totalitarian, we're democratic. Polish units can march through Ukraine once we align it. Austro-Hungarian units can march through. Basically, we get all these neat little operational advantages that ordinarily in Axis empires the Western Allies get, or even maybe the Soviets can sometimes get. Here, the Germans are going to actually be able to use their allies in a very significant way, which is going to make them a powerhouse. I'm almost looking at the game situation going, there's no way the allies are going to win, but I'm still going to play through it, and it could be we do so poorly on the Daisenso map that at the combined game victory adjudication we find maybe it's a tie or something, or I don't know. Maybe the allies come out ahead by a little bit. Still, it's very interesting, and I'm going to keep playing it just because it's funny. Um, so things are shaping up there. The Germans are doing swell. The Soviet Union is just continuing to build up forces, building up on the borders of the minor countries nearby. That includes Belarusia, Ukraine, Caucasus. Um, it could simply be, a case where we're going to have to take over Belarusia as the Germans just invade it, and it'll be Russian allies, but ideally we just stomp all over them anyway. Um, and the Caucasus, we don't really need to worry about the Caucasus. If at some point in our success against Russia we find an opportunity to align or attack the southern region and then quickly take over Baku, we'll look at that as the Germans. But right now, really concentrated on just aligning things up. The way I think this is going to go is as our grand plan as the Germans start to percolate here. We are certainly going to try to get into Belgium, Holland. We're going to get into Norway. We're going to take France out. We're going to conquer and liberate all these countries, get them under our control. We will then, we could even honestly think about going for Portugal as well. I mean, that's really kind of up in the air. Would be maybe a nice grab if we could do it. Um, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that for certain, but we'll see what happens. And then as we go to war with the Soviet Union, it's basically going to be a campaign against Italy, which we may be able to simply use Austria-Hungary, French units, and maybe a few German units to support that drive and take out Italy. By then, we will have sealed up Bulgaria, maybe sent more Greeks to Italy for support, and then, whatever else is going on at that point, that'll be the real question. But then moving much of our forces east in 41 or something like that to fight the Soviet Union, and ideally we will be starting that deep into the Donbass instead of the other way around. We'll have to see. I mean, that's going to be up to much more decision making. In fact, the Soviets are likely going to demand Donbass back from Ukraine, and we'll have to see if that plays out, if that actually occurs. Unclear. So yeah, that's it for Totaler Creek for the summer. A lot has happened. I'm not going to talk about the cards for it yet. I want to finish talking about the summer because it has been quite an interesting summer indeed. But Totaler Creek, you can see most of the Germans ready to attack in the west. These other minor nations are just kind of holding ground and preparing and waiting for things to evolve. So pretty interesting development for Totaler Krieg. Things have been generally pretty quiet. I forgot to set this guy in the force full. I need to do that. Throw it over there for now. The Japanese have had success. They have completely conquered Hope province. They performed well. Their attacks were good. We did use a little bit of air to support things, but we have totally conquered Hope province, which is good. It's pretty late in the game to have done it, but we did it, and that gives us some options further downstream. We are about to be attacking Wuhan. We should be able to do that. I'm a little worried about. Well, let's see. What's the weather going to be like? The weather's going to be fine. So we're kind of timing this right. We did well in the north, and now we will have a season where we can kind of seal the deal in the central region. Um, we didn't really do a whole lot in the central region, uh, other than make some effort to attack, and that worked. So overwhelming odds will tend to do that. So we've done well there. Oh, actually, come to think of it, this is I had to place it like so. Anyway, there's something with the weather there that I had to adjust. But still, we. Oh no, did I do something wrong? Oh no, I did that. Okay. Yes, I am fine. I didn't. I am just fine. We had the. This guy actually needs to be off the map. That's what I forgot to do. So when I'm giving myself some slack here. I would have played it up here, outside of that weather zone, and we would have gotten into here the turn before. Um, so there's a possibility I maybe gave these guys an extra shift that they shouldn't have gotten, when I did attack. I have to think about that for a second. Would that have made a big difference? I don't know. Let me roll a die. Okay, it won't make a difference. We're going to keep the result. I do need to roll this, and okay, so they're just going to get this air unit back in one turn anyway. That's fine. Okay, small digression there, guys. But we are in pretty good shape to continue, and now we have linked up fronts against China. The weather will be fine to attack Wuhan into the fall. Our one attack against a garrison at that city I had done, wanting to make sure that we could get in there while we had the opportunity to, and I think it's fine. We rolled well enough; it shouldn't have mattered. But I think Japan could use a little help anyway. So anyway, you can see we're making progress in China, but Sichuan has been activated and is kind of forming up. So we're going to have to make some progress, knowing that there's more fighting to be done. So even if we get Wuhan, Japan's going to have to send more units, start to work on southern China. We do have some units here that are going to make their way into Fuchao and sort of link up as we kind of curve this way. Would be nice to shut down Kiangsu, and then um, it's going to be trying to work on the communists and Sichuan. The aid to China is going to be coming in. So the Soviet aid to China card has been played. The marker is going to be several turns away yet. So there's really only a short amount of time here for the Japanese to make a lot of progress. There are some small things we can do. We can make some targeted attacks to reduce the number of Chinese communist steps on the board, and maybe kind of burn up some of the Szechuan, because it's really truly a war of attrition. So when you look at how many steps will the Chinese be getting, like, we need to be killing more than they're producing if we're going to win in China, and it's going to be a major resource drag either way we do it. But I kind of had it set up for Japanese mobilization to be producing a lot of steps over the summer, so we haven't really lost anything. So Japan should have some momentum going into the fall that we can keep up and keep moving ideally, and make good progress across the board in China. That we have to do that. We are making up for a lack of warfare for a couple of years. We really need to be pushing very, very hard. And then for the rest of the Soviet stuff, we're really talking about rearmament, slow accumulation of steps, and that's about it. But that will, with aid to China coming out eventually, we should see some more life being, uh, flooded into China one way or another. Still a lot to see there. So wow, a lot of stuff for the summer. A lot of stuff going on. Let me do a couple administrative things, and then we'll talk about the card selections going into fall, and the cards that are going to be set up for winter. Okay, so for the fall, here's going to be the cards set up for each faction. I'm just going to play through the whole fall season here. We're going to demand Galmosland with the, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, guys, but so it goes, with the expectation that we're going to have to go to war. I think we need to just do it. I think the time is close enough now that we should be looking to do it, and we're going to have German mobilization as the next card after that. This is actually a pretty good card. I can definitely see a reason to try to play this in the summer, because if you look, for each German marker in the seeded lands box, you get one step. Well, we get 3 steps for that. So it'd be really nice to be able to do that more frequently. But this is going to be a straightforward card to just continue to buff up the things that we want to be able to do. Makes sense to me. For the allies, we've got Scandinavian League and North African League. Because we're still locked in a pre-war, I don't really have any good options. There's another mobilization card I'd like to play, but I'll have to wait. Well, I guess, well, actually, okay. So let me think about this for a second. If Scandinavia League is going to be played and we'll be in the new year, maybe I do want to play British mobilization is probably the better choice here. So we'll do that. Because the North African League wouldn't really do much for us. I'm just doing it because I need a card pick, but this would be. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Gosh, guys. Okay, this is our fall turn card, or fall season. This is our winter. We can't play the mobilization card. But the mobilization card I'll flag for next, maybe, depending on how this goes. We don't need to make the decision now. So Western Allies on Totaler Krieg map. It's diplomacy because we don't have very many other good options. For the Soviets, we are going to be doing the Nazi-Soviet pact again. That the reason we're doing that is to protect the neutrals on the board that could swing Soviet, and of course, there's other things that we'll get out of it. We're going to end up demanding Donbass, I think. So we'll be packed at that point. Pre-war is not in a okay. Russia's posture is packed, or pre-war is not in effect. So this will enable us to try to demand Donbass. It comes at a weird time because we had already I had thought about playing that card prior to them getting their influence. So what would happen? We would, if we got Donbass, we would get a bunch of good territory here. We'd be able to set up along a defensive river line, and we'd get at least one strategic hex out of the Germans' hands. And I like that. I think that's worth it. At least I want it to be worth it. We're running out of good options here, guys. We got to do something. So I think I'm going to try that. We'll see what happens. Now for Daisenso, and just to get us into the Daisenso mentality here on the map, looking at the game situation, we are going to be doing Operation Wugo. This is to get some blitz markers out, and we're going to do First Army expansion. After that, this is going to do a couple of things. We're going to get more stuff, but we are going to be able to get some detachments deployed, and that's going to help us get basing set up in Iwo Jima, possibly Palau or Ainwatak, just so we can sort of fill out the rest of our naval bases, because no matter what we do, even if we spend a lot of effort on the continent, we will have to fight in the Pacific at some point. Western Allies are going to do their aid to China, and then they're going to follow that up with relocate Chinese industries. So while China is at war, there's really no reason not to try something. So we're gonna try that, and then for Russia, we're going to do Chinese insurgency. We know that we're going to continue to try to make a political difference there some way, somehow. And then otherwise, we're just going to play border disputes because it's a 0 card. And, we're not at war, so it's almost like we're not really getting a whole lot out of this. But I don't have I need to be careful about what cards I play yet, and I need to make sure that I'm getting the right cards on the Totaler map. So I'm willing to just eat some recyclable zero cards just because there's not much else for me to do. Um, okay, so those are the cards. We're gonna get started with the Germans first, obviously, and this, the demand Gau Moselen will be a big deal. So I do wonder if I should do this um, on camera or not. This video is going to be really long if I do it that way. Let me just play through the fall. It's 2 turns, guys, and if you see Germany on the border of France over here when I come back, you'll know what happened, and I'll talk about the end results. If for some reason war doesn't break out and we are given Gaumoseland, I mean, we'll move in to occupy that territory. But then we're going to have to look at a different card or something else to allow us to operate here. Um, there is a natural way to enter limited war. It's a certain mobilization card can trigger that. We may need to just get that card rolling if we're going to get the war rolling. This, I think, maybe on both maps the war could end up being delayed depending on those die roll. So yeah, let's see what happens this fall. Okay, so the war has brought to fruition here, limited war on the Totaler map. Indeed, Belgium, the Netherlands, Belgium, Holland, resisted the demand, and in a very brief clash, the Germans have overrun the country and have additionally liberated it. So you can imagine, I don't know, that under pressure, there's some socialist mini revolution that occurs in Belgium, and the Germans go ahead and just take over the country. They get Gaumoseland, and they put into place some new democratic regime, we'll say. But Belgium Holland was taken out. We also, over the course of the turn, we then declared war on the Baltic states, which put them into Britain's camp. And because the Baltic states really don't have much in the way of units, we were able to, on the subsequent turn, just kind of overrun it with Polish troops and German troops. And we will, rather than demand Lithuania, we just declared war and took over the territory. And we technically, I guess, we've liberated the Baltic states as well. So we are liberating many countries on the map. Hooray! So reasonably good. I did not attempt any naval activities with Germany against Britain because the weather is not going to allow for it. We will very likely see the Germans preparing to do their Weissbarung maneuver against, I'm probably mispronouncing that, by the way, against Norway, and kind of finish off the Denmark-Norway country, which should be an easy pickup, ideally. We're going to want to use a good operations card for that. We'll probably wait for the spring to execute that, so that'll be part of the card decision-making process here. And everything else seems to be going okay. The one funny thing is, I found when I went to play, and I should mention, the Scandinavian diplomacy for Britain failed every single time. Well, I guess the 2 die rolls, but they didn't get it. They just didn't get it at all. And so none of the Scandinavian countries have been shifted. It would have been nice to pick up Sweden or something, or even Finland, but we didn't get any of them. So total waste of a card play for the British. They just had crap diplomacy this entire campaign. For the Russians, their card was actually really interesting. So we were trying to play the Nazi-Soviet pact, but so we had selected it in pre-war as a pending card. That is legal. But when we went to play it, the option card segment is if pre-war is in effect. But by the time it got to Russia, pre-war was not in effect. And so the Nazi-Soviet pact actually did not get played, which means the Soviet miners are still under the cordon sanitaire, which means if Germany were to declare war on, say, Bulgaria or Italy or what have you, it wouldn't mean war with Russia right now. So there's that. Something to think about. So we may have some opportunities as the weather clears, because winter is kind of tough to make any progress. We could start looking at Bulgaria as a side thing, and then we'll eventually want to go into Italy, but we're probably going to want to take care of France first. So you can kind of look at this like, the Baltic states took the place of Poland in some ways. We took Belgium. Bulgaria is going to be the stand-in for Yugoslavia, and or well, maybe Yugoslavia split into Italy and Bulgaria in this timeline. We could even, at this point, because we have Spain kind of involved in the conflict to a basic degree, we could look at sending some contingents into Portugal and try to pick that up. Already, we're at Axis Tide 1 through all of this, and we're only a couple of hexes away from getting into Axis Tide 2 on the European map. So there's definitely going to have to be some tough decisions. I haven't made my card selections yet. As we go over to the Daisenso map, you can see some dramatic progress in China. We're doing very, very well. We got lucky with our Wugo die rolls, and we got a bonsai. And the first one the first die roll, we didn't get anything. It was a no result. But on the second turn, we got the best result we could hope for, which was bonsai. And that gave us a free attack, which we utilized against the Chinese communists. That really put them off balance and unable to respond to then subsequent attacks empowered by a blitz marker. This has led to a very general collapse in central China. Now Sichuan is still holding on to some degree, but going into this next turn, we should see, and this is going to really depend on, I think, the card play, and how things shake out, because the next Japanese card doesn't have a blitz marker. Even in winter, we're going to be dealing with potentially bad weather. I'm going to have to double check where exactly the weather segments are, because we might be fighting in the desert now against the Chinese communists, so that would be a little bit different. I'll have to double check. But you can just see, I mean, we're down to just a couple of steps left for the Chinese communists. It might not take much for us to actually just walk into Lanchao right now. Oh, actually, ooh, no, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. These guys would have been able to, got screwed up here. We could break this guy down, and we could get a unit into that city. So to not totally lose the whole game here, where we had to split that unit and try to move it, I think is the way to go. I think that's legal. I'll have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure I could have done that on the last Soviet action on the second fall turn. For the nationalist, I mean, they're basically just holding on. Sichuan's going to be under a lot of pressure. We still haven't gotten all of our good units on the board. We still need to get some minor steps deployed to get the nationalist headquarters out. We haven't been able to get that yet. The aid is still not even active yet, and so it's very likely. Well, I guess we'll have some minor production. We do have this minor production that could make the difference, and that's been in effect, but hasn't been able to make up for the tremendous losses. So I think the Japanese had some good offensives here. They, for being behind, they've made some great breakthroughs. It is possible that we could see the defeat of the Chinese communists, or at least a general, route along the way here that will, I think honestly see the whole Chinese Communist Front collapse. I mean, they'll still have, even if we take Lanchao, they'll still have this city to put units in at, but they don't have Xinjiang allied. We didn't pay much attention there, and we have lost our opportunity maybe at this point to make much of a difference. So at Japan's leisure, they're going to be able to potentially get the progress they need there. And then as they do this, they're going to probably want to clean that guy up, start to push down. If they can get through this mountain ridge, then Sichuan is pretty much kaput, at which case then, some remaining tough fighting around Jiangsu, and then tough fighting at Yunnan. But, Yunnan may be the last one left at that point, and I'm not particularly worried. if that's the case, because Japan can really just continue to concentrate, get its air power deployed. It would not be a very hard thing to accomplish there. So that's what we're looking at here. The Soviet card really didn't lead to much more in terms of benefits. There was an attempt to use one of the Fortune of War cards, the Diplomatic Intelligence Coup. This was to change. I wanted to be able to pick the result on the card play for the Russians so that they could get another step in the Landschau, and we flubbed the die roll. We rolled a 6, no effect. So there goes a Fortune of War card. So yeah, things are developing. Of course, now it's limited war on both maps, which means everybody's going to be able to concentrate on long-term thinking with a much greater boundary of cards. I did have the capability as the factions after the Axis turned, the Western Allies in Russia, to pick other cards now that it was limited war, when it was their options card segment, but there weren't really a lot of obvious choices to make other than we did make a switch out. So Britain changed their plan. They're going to be playing wartime mobilization because Britain's posture is war. And we're going to get some additional steps here and different things. Another Air Force. At this point, I find that that's going to be really important. So because we were at war and sort of caught, surprised by that maybe a little bit, we're able to slot in wartime mobilization, which gives us some good stuff, and then we'll be able to play, again, more limited war cards for pretty much everybody at this point. That'll probably be the focus. So kind of a really important autumn turn. So we're going to get, I'm going to have to decide on all the winter cards. We'll talk about that. We'll play through winter, and then we'll wrap up this video for 1939. Okay, so for the actual card plays, what we are going to be doing for the Germans, we're going to be doing our German mobilization. We'd already pre-selected that. This will be our mobilization card for 1939. I'm sorry, well, yeah, this is the one for 1939. We haven't done a mobilization yet. And then we're going to do Operation Weisseruebung in the spring of 1940. This is on time. This is like the normal card that would be played. That's going to net us another strategic hex, ideally, and should put us in pretty good shape for whatever else we may want to do there. I do not see the British wanting to try to go for Narvik, if only because if I count the steps in Britain right now, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. And honestly, I don't know that could withstand concentrated effort on the part of Germany. So trying to send off steps on an adventure there feels like it's not going to go well. The amount of effort we would need to put into it would cause way too many support markers, because right now the competition on who has what support markers, right now it's pretty close to being even, and right now the Germans are going to enjoy an advantage in terms of the calculus there. So if I double check this right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to be at Axis Tide 2 very shortly as the Germans, and that's going to be such an advantage on support markers that even without spending some of the British support markers to get onto the continent in Scandinavia, the Germans have a really strong possibility of coming out ahead on getting their support markers back and seeing a sea lion occur. So I don't think we're going to try to defend Narvik. We are too weak right now. We are simply too weak. Now we're going to try to deal with that. So the British will be playing their wartime mobilization that was enabled by limited war breaking out, and then we're going to try to get Lend-Lease going on. This is a good time to try to play it. That's kind of the best thing we can do. We can hopefully get some additional support markers on the map with that. That will give us another fleet. So that can give give Britain the opportunity to stop it, but it's going to be tough. Now for the Russians, we are going to follow through with that demand Donbass, and then we're going to have the Red Army mobilization in the spring. That's just to get their spring mobilization stuff. Or I'm sorry, their 1940 mobilization out of the way. For Japan in the winter, we will be doing our first army expansion, and then we're going to pivot to more mobilization in the spring. Uh, there's not a lot of great limited war cards that have blitz markers for Japan for some reason. So we kind of have to make do with what we've got, but that may be enough to get where we need. Getting the additional armor units on the board will actually make a huge difference, especially against areas like the desert of northern China where the Chinese communists are operating. The American or British, however you want to look at it, cards, it is still very much China oriented. So relocating Chinese industries and then Chinese war production. This is to get some steps flooded onto the map as China before it's too late. We're almost running out of the opportunity for it to matter because the Japanese are smashing in to Chinese territory so strongly, but we'll see. Um, and then for Russia on the Daisenso map, it's really getting some steps and then trying to support the Chinese. Some of this may come too little, too late, but this is the situation we're at. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh darn it! I did it again. We can't play this card. I had to have picked another card. Ah. Um, Dang it. Well, I'm just going to let them play this. I'm going to give the Soviet Union some slack because they're kind of not in great shape either way. So we're going to have them play border disputes and then we'll play Chinese insurgency. I goofed that up, guys. I did it again. I really got to watch the card requirements. I'm kind of failing at keeping that under wraps correctly, but we're happy to do the border disputes and maybe that'll get us something of value. Um, it's a good card to pick as best we can. We'll just do that. We'll have to do that. The limited options are what they are. Okay, so I'm going to go play through the winter turns. Oh, by the way, in terms of shipbuilding, because we are at limited war, that does change the capability for some of the factions. So if we look at the book um, with the right focus, you can see for European limited war that actually decreases British capability. Germany loses its capability, period. So Germany's pretty much done building stuff. Japan can keep going. Russia can keep going, but they've not really succeeded in building anything. And then the United States actually gets better chances of building stuff. So that's kind of the interesting rub there. Whoops, almost knocked over my camera. Jeez. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go play through winter now, and we'll see what happens, and then we'll talk about the results and wrap up the video for 1939. Okay, so winter has led to some developments. The Axis is um, really. Whoops, I forgot to move this guy. I'll leave him there because he's gonna need more steps. Okay, sorry. Um, really, the Axis is just preparing for their next series of events. We do have paratroopers stationed at Frederikshaven to hit Norway. Everything else is gummed up with little diplomatic progress. It's really a question now, how the rest of this year will go. Both Britain is really entering into a pretty heavy mobilization state now, but they're really just operating out of Great Britain. The rest of their territories are really not at their disposal like they normally would at this time period. So rather than go with the Dial plan, we're having to do Lend-Lease next, but that'll be helpful. The Soviets did demand the Donbass, which Ukraine gave in, unfortunately for them. And so Russia has occupied that territory and has reclaimed basically solid defense of Rostov, which is a strategic hex that's really needed. What's interesting is when ceded land happens for the Soviets, the Axis does not get free influence. So we're going to have to finish aligning Ukraine, via other means, but we should be able to do that this year, I hope, and then we'll be able to garrison eastern Ukraine. The general plan is going to be smash in, grab these strategic hexes, aim for a sea line, maybe if we can, but then otherwise be sending a fair number of forces east to begin preparations for large scale invasions of the Soviet Union. We're going to have the Polish on our side, the Ukrainians on our side. Ideally, we may even declare war on Bulgaria and kind of get that cleaned up. Heck, even Romania, because again, these minor Soviet countries have a different policy. So we can go to war, try to clean those guys up quickly, get into Italy, get into Bulgaria, um, and be in a really strong position for the rest of the campaign. So things are lining up. France will be at war with France in the summer, and we should be able to run roughshod over them pretty quickly, or at least that is going to be the hope. And I don't care about getting the case yellow activation because, again, we're going to have the unprepared France, which should give us the time to knock out France entirely and essentially be able to liberate France. That's the goal. Over in Daisenso land, the Japanese are seeing success backed up by success, though they have taken some attrition along the way. So we have basically we remain we have knocked out the communist Chinese. That is in place. That is going to stay for quite a while. They are garrisoned with actual Japanese units, and we now continue to pressure. We've taken Canton, and we are now kind of pushing into Szechuan very deeply. I am using an air unit now to basically keep this from being reinforced, and we will likely finish off Szechuan in the spring. It's very likely that the Allies are going to get steps in the Chengtu, so there'll still be fighting to be done, but we'll have to make that decision. Do we reinforce Yunnan? Do we reinforce Kiangsu? Do we reinforce Szechuan? We may only get a step or two, depending on how things go. So China's actually looking pretty done. Japan's going to get even more Axis tied at this point, and if we can push a little bit harder, we're basically just going to have the weight of numbers and be able to conquer Szechuan, bring more forces down, occupy the final Kiangsu city if we're lucky. Chang is down here with an HQ, so it's going to be harder and harder to make headway down here. They did get him deployed. But if we can just attrit them out, we can convincingly finish the Chinese war. Yunnan will be tough just because there's a lot of rough terrain, but there's not as many hard mountain ridges as Chongqing, and the fact that we are now over the northern ridges, mountain ranges, those passes, which caused two shifts, by the way. So they're really hard. I had to dedicate a lot of effort to breaking that line. Well, now that we're kind of through there, we should be able to finish off Szechuan without too much pain and suffering. So we're really making good progress, miraculous progress over the course of the year here of 1939. In just a couple seasons, the weather has been decent to us. Actually getting into the deserts of Kansu actually helped us because the weather didn't matter as much, and we've had pretty good die rolls. What bad ones we've had, we've gotten some lower results, or I guess worse results. We've taken a couple step losses, but generally I think we're doing pretty good. If we can just keep up the momentum, I can get some more units combined. We'll be in good shape. I have actually been using, this is more important than you might have thought, the Showa restoration marker to allow the combination of colonial Japanese units and regulars, and that's actually helped a lot because it allows us to beef up the steps needed to maintain our combat effectiveness. So despite not having the economic logistics, which would have been very nice to have that logistics marker in China, the Showa restoration marker is actually paying off some dividends here, and we're making progress. So lots of goodness there. Gonna keep up the effort. We're also deploying detachments across the Pacific, so we have a lot of our bases kind of on, even if there's not going to be a lot of necessarily a lot of strength there. We are going to probably rebase some ships to truck at some point or Rabaul, but for now, I think we're in just fine shape. So that's it for uh, basically 1939. Very eventful year, obviously. We are seeing the Central Powers off to a great start, a lot of alignments, a lot of liberating underway, restoring democracy to Europe from Germany, which is hilarious. And then in Daisenso, Japan is really kind of tunnel visioned on China, but we're actually doing very well. The one thing we got to watch out for is Xinjiang has been given Western influence, which means, depending on some future application, the Japanese may have to contend with that Chinese province being activated and in the war. At least I think that's how I need to be worrying about this. Um, I could get some stuff wrong. I'm not sure. Like I don't know if maybe these guys just automatically activate because of the war state. I don't know, but I believe they're not fully in it at the moment. If they are, then that's going to require the Japanese to send more forces north, and things could get really tricky from there. So, lot still to happen here. It'll be an exciting 1940, as Japan would really like to have China done and over with before they have to be thinking about war with America, or decide, where do they want to lean into to get the most bang for their buck. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's it for 1939. We will do 1940 in the next video. I hope this was entertaining to watch. Again, check the written report for the narrative version of all these events, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Keep gaming. Hey, folks, there's one correction I'm putting at the tail end of this video because someone pointed out something, and I confirmed that they were right. Somebody pointed out that playing Indian Independence is like a terrible move. Now, I might question why does the card exist in the first place if there's really no good reason to play it, but I played it at the time because, and I played it back in 1938, by the way. I had played it then thinking that I had to because I had no other pre-war cards to play. But looking at the deck and paying attention to the recyclable cards, I could have played a different card. I wasn't forced into it. I just forgot I had the card. I think I accidentally put it in the discard pile, and that's the Chang Diplomacy and Churchill Diplomacy cards. You can keep playing those. You can even play them, one after the other. So there was no requirement that I had to play Indian Independence. So I've gone back, and here's my fix. I will have decided to have just played Gandhi Arrested. Now, the time I played Indian Independence was during pre-war. I could not have played Indian Independence during, I could not have played Gandhi Arrested during pre-war. That's only a limited war card. But given the screw up here, to me, this is just a matter because the British haven't really done much down here, and what little aid has been going to China is not seemingly worth a whole lot at the moment. I'm just going to say that some of those cards got played a bit earlier, so the British mobilization or rearmament card occurred a season earlier or whatever, and we're just going to move that card play out, and we'll say that we played Gandhi Arrested recently, and I've placed the steps and gave them a couple of movement turns to accommodate that, so that yeah, we do have the British empire extending into India, and we retain control of it, and we've got these extra colonial units that we've put on the board, and that they exist, and that's all good. So while I think it's more interesting if there's a cost like the British, or I guess the Allied player must or needs to play Indian independence if something else doesn't happen. I can't really find a good reason to do it. I thought I had to. I had no choice, I thought. And that's actually interesting. That's like a punishment. That's a consequence of a late limited war. You might lose India for that reason. And it makes sense, in the logic that the game has. But apparently I didn't have to. So it kind of makes that card maybe useless. I don't know. I'm interested to understand if the India independence card has any good utility at all. I don't know. I'm not seeing one. So something to think about. But anyway, India is more protected than it was. The fun thing is, if I later find out something different and I have to reverse this back to India being independent. It's as simple as taking a couple units off the map. Uh, and yes, we do have the garrisons back here. I can just take those off. I can put the independence marker back on the flag and whatever. So it wasn't actually a big fix. It didn't really have a big negative effect on the game because Japan's busy over here. Nothing's happening over here. That's okay. The game is not ruined. I need to make some adjustments. That's all. So I am going to make that sort of correction or that fix. At least for the time being, I don't expect that to be a major game shift right now. But I still wish I knew, why does that independence card exist? Does it actually do anything for us as the Western Allies? I couldn't see it being connected to very many cards that seem to matter. So I did look to find that I maybe should have played League of Nations, and I need to maybe go back and get that played at some point later in 1940, because there are some card dependencies that would be nice to get resolved. But we'll deal with that in time. So anyway, yeah, now's the real ending of the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See you in the next one. India is still part of the British Empire in this game. There you go.